All right, y'all, so we're going to start looking at the transatlantic trade packet. You'll notice that it has a nice big picture on the front here, and it didn't copy very well. So I'm going to take a moment here to kind of establish what it is that we are trading across Europe, Africa, and the Americas. So if we want to make a note, this is Europe over here. Europe is, you know, Spain, England, France, Germany, Holy Roman Empire. This here is Africa. Remember, Africa is a continent and not a country. And over here, we have North and South America. So North America is shockingly to the north. South America is down here, right off my screen in the bottom left. So you'll notice that you have 3 arrows. It does not matter where you start. Transatlantic trade is a triangle. So one triangle goes from North America to Europe. Then we have Europe traveling down the coast of Africa. From Africa, all of our goods are sent over to the Americas. So again, we have this triangular trade. If I start in Africa, I am traveling to the Americas. From the Americas, I go to Europe, and from Europe, I go down the coast of Africa. It is this constant triangle of people going back and forth. Then you'll see that there are some things copied here that tells you what is going which direction. So from this section, I'm going to kind of highlight, and hopefully this will kind of come through, but I have a hard time reading it, so let's take a moment. The portion here, we have sugar, tobacco, and cotton traveling from the Americas to Europe. So these are raw materials. Sugar, funnily enough, is the only product in the history of the world to never experience a decrease in sales. Since sugar has been actually brought to the trade system in its current form, it has never once been kind of, you know, experiencing this like dip in sales. It actually has become such an addictive substance that every year that we increase the sales of sugar. From Europe, they're going to take those raw materials and they're going to turn it into something to sell. So I'm going to turn my paper to the side. And so down the coast of Africa, we're delivering things like textiles. So that is cloth, probably made from the cotton. We have rum, which is an alcoholic beverage made from the sugar, and then other manufactured goods. So remember, manufactured just means that it has been turned into something. So for example, if I'm getting my tobacco from North America shipped to Europe, Europe's going to take the tobacco and turn it into something in a pipe form, or maybe it's going to be used as like a chew or something. Cotton, again, raw material, getting sent to Europe. Europe's going to take their industry and turn it into cloth for clothing, and then take that down the coast of Africa. From Africa over to the Americas, they had a variety of other shipments that, you know, textiles, rum, and manufactured goods that didn't get sold here that would get taken to the Americas as well. However, the primary export, meaning it's leaving Africa, the primary exports are slaves at this time. So I want to be really clear, slavery is a topic you'll cover in your 8th grade history class, but slavery during the triangular trade is the start of what we know as the American slave system. Slaves are being sent from Africa to the Americas in North and South America in order to establish a working base for the cotton plantations, tobacco plantations, and sugar plantations that exist in this area over here. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the introduction text. This is from European Exploration to the Transatlantic Slave Trade, talking about the beginning of exploration to the end result of the slave trade being born. So let's go ahead and start with the introduction. So European exploration. Beginning in the early 15th century, so remember early 15th century, we subtract our 1, that is the 1400s. So this is kind of at the start of the Renaissance. European states began to embark or start on a series of global explorations. Embark means to start, or they left Europe. This created, inaugurated, can also mean like began, a new chapter in world history. Known as the Age of Discovery or the Age of Exploration, this period spanned the 15th through the early 17th century, during which time European expansion went to places such as the Americas, Africa, and the Far East. So we see the 15th, again, the 1400s, 17th would be the 1600s. So it's about a 200-year span of exploration. This era is defined by figures such as Ferdinand Magellan, whose 1519 to 1522 expedition was the first one to go across the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. And he was the first to circumnavigate or go all the way around the globe. So circumnavigate will be around. The European Age of Exploration developed alongside the Renaissance, and we already knew that. So remember, the Renaissance and Age of Exploration are happening at the same time. Both periods in Western history acted as a transition between the Middle Ages and the early modern period. So we see that the Middle Ages is coming to a close, the modern period, which technically we are in, is coming to a start, and we see the middle to the modern period get interrupted by the Renaissance and the Age of Exploration. Competition between really big European empires such as Spain and England fuel the evolution and advancement of overseas exploration. They start competing with each other. They are motivated by religion, profit, and power, and their size and influence of their empires will expand greatly. So their motivation is religion, profit, and power. Remember, religion is religion, profit is money, and then power is an obvious one. The effects of exploration were not only felt abroad, but also within Europe itself. So abroad, people are feeling like, hey, someone came knocking at my door and now they rule me. And then in Europe, Europe's gonna get all the money. The economic, political, and cultural effects of Europe's beginning stages of global exploration are going to impact the long-term development of both European society and the entire world. Mercantilism, this is an important one. So mercantilism is going to be a key word here. It's a type of economy, okay? So mercantilism is a type of economy. And remember, economy is any system we use for money. During the European age of exploration, the nations of Europe are going to develop a new economic policy called mercantilism. The theory of mercantilism, kind of shown above apparently, held that a country's power depended mainly on its wealth. Wealth, after all, allowed nations to build strong navies. It allowed them to purchase vital goods. And as a result, the goal of every nation becomes, to get as much wealth as possible. So a country's power depends on money. That is the idea of mercantilism. It doesn't matter how many nobles I have. It doesn't matter how many jewels I have. It's how much money do I have as a country that determines how successful I am. According to the theory of mercantilism, a nation could increase its power and wealth in two ways. Number one, so two ways to be successful. Option number one, you can obtain as much gold and silver as possible. Second option, if you can't do that, you can establish a favorable balance of trade where you sell more goods than it bought. This is absolutely crucial. So option number one is I can just literally get gold and silver. So think of Sir Elizabeth I of England. She wants gold and silver. She sends Sir Francis Drake out. He becomes a pirate. He brings her gold and silver he stole from Spain. She is now wealthy. That is mercantilism in England. If you're not able to hire pirates to be your best friends, you then could figure out a better balance for trade. Sell more, buy less. If I don't have to buy a bunch of stuff, I get to keep more of my money. And if I'm the one selling everything, that means I am making more money, right? So a nation's ultimate goal is to become self-sufficient, meaning that you can take care of yourself. Sell more, buy less. I make everything, I sell everything I make. I don't have to buy much because I'm self-sufficient. I can take care of myself in the zombie apocalypse. Mercantilism went hand in hand with colonization. Colonialization is a nice fancy term for I now own your country, whether you like it or not. And so let's just kind of categorize this under warfare, because colonies are going to play a really important role in this new economic practice. They provided silver and gold. They provided raw materials that could not be found in the home country, like wood or furs. And in addition to actually supplying all of the goods, the colonies also provided a market, meaning that they would buy it. The home country could actually sell its goods to the colonies. So let's take a moment here. Colonies are important because, like the Americas, for example, Europe comes in, they divide up the Americas. Let's say that Mexico is able to produce a lot of silver and gold because of the Aztec Empire. That silver and gold is getting sent to Spain. Spain now has all the silver and gold. They also take raw materials that you can get. So food items, right? Food items is a raw material. Wood, lumber, furs from animals where you can have like really thick pelts like otters, for example. Essentially, the colonies are being forced to hand over every raw material that they have. They send it to Europe. Europe turns it into a viable product and then forces the colonies to buy it. There is no choice. So the colonies provided all of the supplies and then are forced to buy all of the materials. But it means that the home country, aka Europe, has a way of making sure that they do have a buyer, whether the buyer wants to buy it or not. So that brings us to Christopher Columbus. When Christopher Columbus first arrived in the Americas, he thought it was Asia, and he called the native populations Indians. We already know that's a lie. That's just the version of history we tell you in this age, but Columbus knew he was not in Asia. He just figured he was kind of close. Although wrong, we remember him because he returns to Europe and he shares news of his trip. His trips to the Americas, along with other European explorers, began the exploration and conquest of much of the Americas. So he does begin a trading system with the Americas. For the first time, the Americas are now impacted by what we refer to as the Columbian Exchange. In Europe, there's new types of foods that actually improve diets and lifespans. European economies also improve through trade. Animals like the cow and the horse actually are brought to the Americas. We didn't have cows or horses here originally, but Native American groups now are introduced to cows and horses. Their lives change for the better in that sense, at least. However, connected to Asia and Africa and Europe are now all connected by trade. So we see that there are now three continents being added to the Americas. This is referred to as the Columbian Exchange, though, without the Americas. So we have Asia, Africa, and Europe. That is the Columbian Exchange, okay? The Columbian Exchange is then going to transport plants, animals, diseases, technologies, and people from one continent to another. They're trading things like tobacco, tomatoes, potatoes, corn, cacao, peanuts, and pumpkins coming from the Americas to the rest of the world. Europeans then bring into the trade group food like bananas, coffee, animals like cattle, sheep, pigs, and horses. And then disease is often a traveler as well, so smallpox and malaria spreads, killing most of the native populations. This is what we refer to as like the earliest form of globalization, meaning that the entire globe is impacted in some way. So this means everyone is involved. Everyone is involved. So this is the Columbian Exchange, and we can actually add up here Asia, Africa, Europe, and then they add in Americas later. So the Columbian trade is going to have the 4 different sections of the world. Let's take a look at the triangle trade. So triangle trade is going to focus on 3 different portions because, figure it out, triangles have 3 sides. Triangular trade. It is the trade between Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Notice that Asia is left out. So if I ask about Asia, that is going to be the Columbian Exchange. If I don't ask about Asia, it is the triangular trade. So we have things like raw materials like precious metals, so gold and silver, tobacco, sugar, and cotton are going to come from the Americas to Europe. Manufactured goods like cloth and metal items for like jewelry, silverware, stuff like that, they go to Africa and the Americas. And then slaves travel from Africa to the Americas. This trade created great profits for Europe. So Europe is making bank off of this deal, okay? They're kind of ripping off Africa and the Americas. The lives of Native Americans, though, were severely damaged or destroyed for obvious reasons due to people coming in and taking over their country. African slaves suffered horribly. We already know this. Slavery is not a good thing. The trip from Africa to the Americas was called the Middle Passage. So that is this trip here. We're looking at our picture from the very front page. So from Africa to Europe, that is the Middle Passage. In the Middle Passage, hundreds of slaves were packed tightly into ships. Conditions were absolutely horrible. We have diseases killing off most of the people before they can even arrive in the Americas. And notice that 20% of Africans actually died before even arriving. To put it in perspective, that means 20 out of every 100 people died before even setting foot on land. If anybody got sick on the boat ride and they saw that somebody was sick, they would actually throw them overboard in an attempt to stop the disease from spreading. Survivors were then sold into a brutal slavery, where we are seeing them work in mines or on farms growing crash crops under horrific circumstances. Okay, so we need to look at 2 different political cartoons. Actually, I lied. We're looking at one political cartoon and then like a diagram. So a political cartoon, its purpose is to criticize or analyze something and make a point about it. So the idea for this is that it is making a severe point. You'll notice that they are making an argument for why countries should expand. Okay, so why should we as England or as Portugal or as Spain go invade other people and take control? So you notice that this lady here is the mother country. We know that she's wealthy. We see like all these lovely jewels, right? We see a crown on her head. We see rings. We got bracelets. And she's looking very happy. She's looking very pleased by the 3 people here bringing her things. Now, each one of these young women represents a colony. And we can tell from their way of dressing is that they are servants. So we have servants here with a queen who looks very happy to be receiving their items. Now, the things here, the trays that they're holding, You can see that the first lady is bringing in gold and silver. The second lady is bringing food stuff, so anything food related. And then the last one is raw materials. So again, lumber, cotton, etc. So I want you to take a moment and look at this. Why should we expand? Well, it makes you happy. It makes you wealthy. And look at their faces. Now, I realize it's a political cartoon copied multiple times, but each one of these women looks very happy. So the message here is we are happy to be serving you. Colonies want to be taken over. They want you to steal all their stuff. They want to give you their gold and silver, their foodstuffs, their raw materials. They're happy to do it because they are thankful to the queen for taking them over. Totally backwards, but that is the information here. Then you can see down here, we have a diagram on how Europeans viewed mercantilism. So remember, mercantilism is our economic system where it was sell more, buy less. So you can see that it starts off with gold and silver. Gold and silver fills up the mother country's treasury where she keeps all of her money. They're very happy to have all that gold and silver. The balance of trade, to make the balance of trade favorable, meaning yes, we like the balance of trade. You want to make sure that you have more exports and fewer imports. So again, export means to sell, import means to buy. So for example, let's say I make $1,000 a month. That is my salary. But let's say that I sell potatoes. I'm going to sell more potatoes. I'm going to try and buy less things. But if I only can grow potatoes, I need other things than potatoes in my life. I need clothes, I need a house, I need lumber, I need, beef, I need veggies, not that tomato, potatoes, not great for you. Anyways, the idea is I have to buy all of that. But if I can be more self-sufficient, where I'm selling all vegetables known to mankind, then I have to buy less of those. So you want to buy less, sell more. And then there's a cycle. The mother country is going to send manufactured goods to the colonies. They get the finished product. That's because the colonies are used for gold, silver, fur, lumber, foodstuffs. They have the raw materials. So it's this cycle of the colonies send the raw materials to the mother country. The mother country turns that raw material into a manufactured item and sells it back to the colonies. So the colony grows cotton. Cotton is a raw material. It is used by the mother country to make cloth. Cloth is then sent back to the colonies. Here's the problem. I can't sell cotton for very much. It's a raw material. It's not really good for me if I can't do anything with it. So I sell cotton for a penny. The mother country turns that into cloth. The cloth now costs $5. Colonies are getting ripped off by selling the raw materials, and then they are having to buy at higher prices the manufactured good, which technically their raw material made in the first place. So this is how mercantilism works. The mother country is getting all the money. They're making all the profit. The colony is basically being abused for their raw materials and then being abused in the pricing of the manufactured goods sent back to them. This is going to be all the lead up for the American Revolution. This is why the American colonies were so ticked off. They were tired of getting ripped off for the raw materials, and they were tired of getting sold manufactured goods at a higher price.